President Richard M. Nixon, Privacy Address, 1974.
Many things are necessary to lead a full, free life, but none of these is more important than the most basic of all individual rights, the right to privacy. At no time in the past has our government known so much about so many of its individual citizens. Government bureaucracies seem to thrive on collecting additional information. That information is now stored in over 7,000 government computers. And the names of over 150 million Americans are now in computer banks scattered across the country. In short, data banks affect nearly every man, woman, and child in the United States today. Here is the heart of the matter. A system that fails to respect its citizens' right to privacy fails to respect the citizens themselves. Careers have been ruined. Marriages have been wrecked. Reputations built up over a lifetime have been destroyed by the misuse or abuse of data technology in both private and public hands. Advanced technology has created new opportunities for America as a nation, but it has also created the possibility for new abuses of the individual American citizen. Adequate safeguards must always stand watch so that man remains the master and never becomes the victim of the computer.
Clearly, the computer, because it can do things that much cheaper than we could do in the past, lets us do things which we couldn't afford to do. Many of these things have great social value. I think we wouldn't want to go back to dealing with airlines that didn't have computerized reservation systems. That's an incredible convenience for the passenger. So they are great advantages. But as we tend to computerize more and more information about individuals, as we get closer in time to 1984, then it's possible to get more towards Orwell's 1984.
A quiet revolution is stirring in the French port of Saint-Malo. Here on the coast of Brittany, the government of France has begun a daring experiment to launch every French household into the computer age. The townspeople of Saint-Malo are the first to receive, free of charge, computer terminals provided by the state-run telephone company. The French call the idea telematique, the marriage of the telephone with the computer. Practically, what telematique means is putting computer power into the hands of people in their homes.
Bonjour. Les télécommunications, je viens pour vous installer l'annuaire. Où souhaitez-vous l'installer?
Vous faites quelque chose...
La prise téléphonique et une prise de courant.
The Saint-Malo experiment is part of a top priority government plan to develop the French computer industry. The initial reason for distributing the electronic terminals is to replace the telephone book.
Peut-être avez-vous de la famille ou des amis à Saint-Malo?
The terminals are at the moment just used for locating telephone numbers. But in the future, they can be linked to electronic mail, computerized shopping, electronic banking, and a host of other computerized information networks.
Et voilà.
Allô?
Madame Debord?
Non, Sophie.
Excusez-moi, ne quittez pas, je vous passe votre sœur.
Oui.
Government experts predict that mass computerization will take hold and become as indispensable to society as electricity. And so France is plunging into the future with a policy committed to socializing the computer. Low manufacturing costs and revolutionary changes in the size of computers are what's making such mass distribution possible. The past 30 years have been a race to make computers smaller and cheaper. In 1951, UNIVAC 1 occupied a space 10 cubic feet in size, and it cost $701,000. Today, the same amount of computing power can be stored in a silicon chip, which costs $19. An estimated 5 trillion clerical workers would be needed to do the same work done by computers worldwide. Ethnic code, race, religion, income, political persuasion. It's all stored in computer files. Never have the governments of the Western world known so much about their citizens. Half a century ago, Hitler's Gestapo rounded up over 6 million Jews all over Europe. The lists which identified their religion were stored in shoeboxes. If civil liberties were suspended today, such a task would be 1,000,000 times more simple. The memory of the roundup is still vivid, and in September of 1980, the Council of Europe signed a treaty of rules protecting privacy of computerized personal data. In the New York office of Citibank, Blake Greenlee.
The people there that helped write that treaty and that are looking at privacy in the European Privacy Commissions, all in their youth, saw friends, neighbors, acquaintances rounded up and sent to camps as a result of information on manual, paper-based, pencil and paper files. They have a very real fear of the increased ability of a totalitarian state to use computer-based records to conduct a roundup of undesirables, whether on the basis of religion or political affiliation or activity or race.
And just who gets Europe's business in data processing may depend on how well confidentiality is protected. The French government is giving strong support to its own computer industry. CII Honeywell Bull has developed a memory card containing a chip. It's called a smart card. Alain Roy.
Now this is my CP8 smart card. Now behind this circle there is a little silicon chip, very small, which is the computer with its own memory. So you can store a lot of information in this card. Transactions, personal data, whatever. The use of the card will depend on the program that's installed right here.
French bankers will soon be testing the smart card for shopping and banking transactions. The card can be loaded with credit at a bank and then debited at the point of sale by the shopkeeper. The card is protected from misuse by a secret code known only to the cardholder. When someone attempts to use the wrong code, the chip will electronically close down.
Now in France we have what we call a carnet de santé, which is a really health booklet where your medical history and medical data is recorded so that if something happens to you, they can take good care of you. This booklet could very well be replaced in the future by such a card.
In an emergency, the card can be inserted in a reader, so important health data such as blood group, vaccinations, allergies, and the name of the patient's physician can be obtained immediately.
This smart card is, of course, a revolution because it's carrying a computer in your pocket and it's an intelligent media in a way. So obviously the question comes, what will be the consequences on society? Now, I don't see this very different from, the problem we already know about computers. Like any new technology, this can be used for the best of man, or it could be misused, of course. One advantage I want to point out is, I know especially Americans are concerned about privacy, and I want to point out that this allows you to carry your own personal file in your pocket and to make sure that it will not be used without your agreement.
The accident happened about 10 minutes ago? Thank you. Where were you standing when you saw the accident?
Well, I was walking down the street here, and neither of them had their lights on or anything. It was getting pretty dark.
All right.
To be admitted to a hospital for emergency treatment is to sign a blanket release, turning over all information gathered about the patient to his insurance company.
Need you to sign here for treatment and here to release the information to the insurance. She ever been here before?
2 years ago.
Want to have a seat?
That information may ultimately end up in the computer files of welfare agencies, credit reporting agencies, and a giant data bank shared by life insurance companies called the Medical Information Bureau.
Now, I just need a signature so that we may release records to your insurance company.
How much would you like to borrow? $4,000. We would like you to fill out this application and update credit information.
The personal information which we surrender without question has become the price we pay for credit and banking privilege.
Have you made any large, major purchases recently?
Last week we bought some furniture at a local department store.
If an error finds its way into a credit file, chances are it won't be discovered until a person has been denied a mortgage, credit, or even employment. One credit reporting company tested a sample and found 1/3 of its information was incorrect. Individuals do, however, have the right to inspect their credit files. The biggest record keeper of them all is the federal government. At last count, there were over 5,800 personal data banks, holding an average of 18 files on about 3 billion people. Congressional concern over the increased use of computers in federal record keeping led to the signing of the Privacy Act in 1974. This act provides that each individual has the right to find out which federal record systems keep files on him, what's in those files, and the right to correct those files. The listing of the federal file systems is published yearly by the Federal Register. To get to see all your files, you must write 5,800 separate letters. Few people have the time, inclination, or $1,000 for postage to exercise fully their right to privacy. And there are times when requests to see files are refused. Singer and anti-war activist Joan Baez sued several intelligence agencies to learn the contents of her files. A United States District Court issued a ruling refusing to release certain of her records because of national security considerations. During the 1960s, Martin Luther King was the target of intense governmental surveillance. At the Center for National Security Studies, Morton Halperin.
The FBI, particularly J. Edgar Hoover, who was then the director of the FBI, reached the judgment that Martin Luther King Jr. was a great threat to the nation. Hoover knew that nothing that King was doing was illegal, and therefore that there was no way that he could present evidence to the Attorney General and ask that he be indicted. So he ordered the FBI to undertake its own program designed to try to destroy the reputation and the political effectiveness of Martin Luther King Jr., and this involved not only physical surveillance, but it involved bugging of his hotel rooms and tapping of his telephone lines. Information was provided privately to journalists. People were given briefings in the Congress about his alleged improper behavior in an attempt to discredit him. And then at one point, the FBI sent King a letter shortly before he was to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, which in effect told him that if he did not commit suicide, the Bureau would make public this information which they claimed they had, which they said would be politically embarrassing to him.
This letter, which has been heavily censored, was released from FBI files under the Freedom of Information Act. The letter warned, King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days. Morton Halperin was himself the object of FBI surveillance while serving on Henry Kissinger's National Security Council during the Nixon administration. From May 1969 to February 1971, Halperin's home telephone was wiretapped without a warrant.
When this administration came into office for a period of many months, it was confronted with leaks to the press of documents that were considered of the greatest importance to the national security.
I am tempted to argue that only somebody who has been wiretapped and who has read the logs of his conversations, as I have, can have a view on whether wiretapping is appropriate or not. I think many people's reaction is, if you have nothing to hide, why do you care if you're tapped? But if you then start thinking about what you said on the phone and whether you will feel comfortable having a third party, a stranger, sitting and listening in, I think you come to realize that it is a real invasion of your privacy.
In 1978, Congress passed the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. With few exceptions, it requires warrants for all wiretaps within the United States. In the area of international communications, the privacy of Americans corresponding with foreigners is not so well protected. The headquarters of one of the nation's largest and most highly secret intelligence agencies is located at Fort Meade, Maryland.
It is said that the National Security Agency's computer capabilities are 20 years ahead of private industry.
The National Security Agency was created in 1952 by a secret directive from President Truman to the Secretary of Defense. It's basically responsible for collecting information that moves in the air or across wires. That means telephone messages, cable traffic, telex messages, radar. It gathers that information and attempts to analyze it to determine what it can tell you about the activities of foreign governments. Sometimes that means simply reading unclassified and uncoded messages. Sometimes it means trying to break diplomatic codes and figuring out what the information means. NSA routinely monitors various channels of international cable traffic. They essentially have the technical capacity to take any cable line that they want anywhere in the world. They're limited simply by the fact that there's so much traffic that they can't take it all. They take what they want, put it into their computer, and then by using code words like narcotics or drugs or terrorism or oil or energy, they extract from that massive cable traffic the information that they're interested in. Any American has to assume that if he's sending cables out of the United States, receiving cables from the United States on any subject of interest to the foreign policy of the United States, that cable may well end up being collected by NSA and distributed to the State Department, the Commerce Department, and the Treasury Department.
Commerce in buying and selling mailing lists has become big business and big politics. Millionaire Richard Viguerie heads a direct mail company which raises funds for the new right. Viguerie raises over $30 million a year through mailings for his conservative clients. As part of the bargain, he gets to keep all the names on his clients' list. That's how he builds his file.
I used to say that this room was probably the most important room in America to conservatives. But now that we have Mr. Reagan in the Oval Office, I no longer can say that. We have about 3,000, maybe 4,000 of these magnetic tapes here in this room. Each one can hold about 650,000 names and addresses. I guess if you unduplicated all the names here, we'd probably have about 25 million separate names and addresses. Of those 25 million, maybe about 4.5 million we've identified are conservative on one or more issues. Yeah.
We get the names from hundreds and hundreds of mailings that we do each year. We mail about 70 or more million letters each year. And we will mail to gun lists for gun clients. We'll mail to religious type lists for our, say, pro-life clients.
Did we get that WLF house file out?
Over the years, has been in one central place, the names and addresses of all of the people who consider themselves conservatives and will send money through the mail. When a new conservative cause comes along, we don't have to go out there and invent the wheel all over again. We've got a list of people we can go right to. Direct mail to the conservative movement means a great, great deal. I feel strongly, and a lot of others agree with me, that there wouldn't be a conservative movement in this country. There certainly wouldn't be something called the New Right without direct mail. We promote our candidates through direct mail, our causes. We write to people and tell them about issues that are coming up before Congress next month that they've never heard about. We sell subscriptions to our magazine, to my magazine, Conservative Digest, as well as National Review, Human Events, etc. It's our method of communication.
And communicate they did. In the November 1980 election, Viguerie helped build a constituency which swept 33 new Republican congressmen and 12 new Republican senators into office.
We really wouldn't have a political direct mail industry if it weren't for the computer. It used to be that it might take several weeks to get a mailing of 100,000 out now. And we can mail 100,000 letters in a day's time with no big effort.
About 3% respond. Does Viguerie feel he's invading the privacy of the 97% who do not?
I feel strongly that it is not an invasion of privacy, no more than advertisements in the magazine that you subscribe to or included, or advertisements in your daily newspapers, or advertisements on radio or television.
I personally feel that when an organization that I've given my name to for a specific reason sells my name and address to somebody else, that's an invasion of my privacy. They have told someone else something about me, that I'm interested in a special kind of product, for example. Because of this concern with organizations selling my name, some years ago I adopted the practice of coding my name when I gave it to someone else. So, for example, when I became a member of the Book of the Month Club, the name that I went by was Bamalub Armor. So now when I get mail addressed in that fashion, I know that the Book of the Month Club has sold my name and address. They have done this, taken my name and address, and sold it without my knowledge. They have done it for their own profit. I think that name and the fact that I'm interested in books is something that belongs to me and not to the Book of the Month Club. Here's junk mail from Colonial Penn Insurance Company addressed to Colpa Armor. Research Institute recommendations. I get mail under Rheinrem Armor. I recently subscribed to a magazine called Next under the name of Rex Armor. I don't know what my postman thinks about all the people, all these aliases that I use, all the mail for these strange people coming to this one address. But it does let me know who it is that's selling my name.
Hello, darling. This is Raja Gabor. Are you surprised that I called? Talk to me, darling.
Hello. This is Reverend Jesse Jackson calling from Operation Push. We're now using a new telecomputer system that lets you talk back. We need two-way communication.
Telephone Broadcasting Systems offers a marketing technique which its executives predict may one day replace direct mail. It's based on marrying the telephone with the computer to produce the telecomputer. Paul Greenberg.
To start off with, in Dallas, we have a cross-reference bank of people of 72 million Americans who are cross-referenced as to their voter's registration, driver's license, specialty purchases, and magazine subscriptions. And for instance, if we would like to zero in on a particular segment of the population for a particular call, we can say, for instance, take this area. We can zoom in on this area just like a rifle shot. And by making a call into that area, we will then know that everybody that we call in that area will have an inherent interest in the reason that we're calling and a reason to answer us back. First, the operator selects the tape that we're going to be using in that message. She then places it in the dialer. She then tells the computer to start dialing. The computer then dials 4 numbers at one time. The first person who answers, their name is placed on the screen for her to see. When she introduces the call, if the person agrees to accept the call, she then begins the broadcast.
Hello? May I speak with Barbara Greenberg, please? Yes, this is Barbara Greenberg. I have an important telecomputer call from J.D. Sumner, Elvis Presley's bass singer and closest friend. One moment, and I'll connect you.
Hello, I'm J.D. Sumner, Elvis's bass singer and friend for 25 years, going back long before Heartbreak Hotel. If he were alive today, I know
the tape
that
then
Elvis
takes over and gets to a point where it would ask the person the first question.
I understand that you're one of Elvis's real fans. Is that right?
If the person does not respond to that first question, the tape then prompts the person and restates the question.
I want you to talk to me. You are a real Elvis fan, aren't you?
Oh, yes, I am.
Our experience has been that people really enjoy talking to the computer. And especially when they hear that first prompt when the person says, I didn't hear you, and they know it's a tape, it just does something to them. It makes them just answer any question that we ask them almost.
Elvis took me into his confidence, and I'll tell you the real truth about it.
Once in a while you hear somebody say, I don't like speaking to a computer, and then they go right on and give us what we want to know anyway.
And there's something that Elvis, I know, would want you to have. The one thing, besides being able to hear Elvis sing, that his fans cherished most was an Elvis scar.
The person gets to hear the whole tape and give any answers that are required. And at that point in time, if we desire, we can play back what the person has told us to confirm whatever commitment or promise that person has made.
For only $19.95. Elvis would have wanted it this way.
At that point, a completed call is sent a mailogram automatically by the computer, which confirms whatever commitment we've received from the person over the phone. In the collection area, we use it for account collection, master charge, Visa collection, past due automobile accounts, bad check collection. When we ask a person to make a commitment, when they do make it, when they hear the playback of their own voice saying that they're going to make the payment, it psychologically reinforces that fact, and they normally follow through and do make that payment.
Jordan Marsh is a very patient company, don't you agree? They've waited a long time now, right? Well, I'm John Johnson from Jordan Marsh, and my patience has finally reached its limit. I expect payment now. This debt will not wait any longer. Will you be mailing the amount due today or tomorrow? Speak to me. Your response or lack of it will become a permanent part of your record. Will you be mailing the amount due today or tomorrow?
I'll take care of it today for sure, and I'm sorry I let it slip.
And will you be paying this by certified check or money order?
It'll be a certified check. I'm going to my bank this afternoon.
Now, so that you realize that this is a commitment and not merely a promise, I will play your commitment back to you now.
I'll take care of this today for sure, and I'm sorry I let it slip. It'll be a certified check. I'm going to my bank this afternoon.
Nothing short of the next 2 days will do. I'll be looking for your payment. Goodbye.
Saying goodbye to computers is something a group of Frenchmen desperately want to do. The terrorist organization Direct Action declared war on computers by bombing 3 separate French data centers. Jim Denny manages computer operations at AmeriFirst Federal Savings and Loan in Miami.
Okay. Response time?
Part of his job is to maintain the security of his bank's nerve center, the computer room.
We feel that we've done a very adequate job in securing our data center. We are in a very large building, and in no place in this building is there any indication of where our data center is. All the entrances and exits to our data center are monitored through another security-type system on another floor in this building. We also have cameras that monitor every entrance and exit into this area. Well, there's numerous things that an individual could do if they had the ability to get into our system.
Nova obtained this wiretap of a bank transaction to illustrate the dangers of electronic data communication. Computer thieves will tap financial data lines to gain access to and manipulate electronic fund transfers. Computer spies will tap lines to collect confidential information about individuals and institutions as it travels between computers. How difficult is it to wiretap a data line? What it takes is the right equipment and access to the right location.
313032 to trap and run. Get him. We will get him. We will get him. Yeah, they're coming by. We'll just wait our turn. We're going to wait our turn in here. Ooh, let's back that one up. Let's back it up. There we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. We got that one. That's the one. That's the one I want. 3102. Take this tape off. And then pick this up to the side. I'll give him the power strip. Give him the power strip. That's okay.
Electronic threats to data communications privacy and security are emerging as international institutions computerize.
Citibank embarked upon a global communications network in the mid-70s.
Peter Wolf, Citibank Senior Vice President.
We now have over 200 of our branches in 100 countries hooked together, if you will, over our own private lease line network globally, as we mentioned. We have major switches in Hong Kong, London, Bahrain, and New York here. The international flow of funds has increased significantly in recent years. The clearinghouse interbank payment system through which the funds flow to the member banks from around the world is in excess of $120 billion now per day. Citibank alone processes in excess of $30 billion a day on behalf of its customers. We are, in fact, at this point, totally committed to the electronic banking concept. That is to say, the ability to deal with our customers, both for information processing and for transaction processing, through electronics.
Citibank transmits its customers' information around the world. All electronic communications are first authenticated with a code system. Between the United States and Europe, for example, information goes first to London, where computers at Citibank's European switch check each authenticity code. No record of transmission is kept here, and only seconds after leaving its origin, the information is switched to Paris, one final European destination. Here, Citibank computers recheck each authenticity code, process the information, and generate hard copies for record keeping. The speed and accuracy of these international transactions are the basis for Citibank's corporate commitment to computers. Peter Wolf.
The technology is with us. We have built an enormous amount of resources because of our beginning so early to use mini computers, large computers, interactive computers. And we are now leveraging those resources and skills to build what we think is the future of commercial banking, electronics.
But do electronic funds transfer systems threaten personal privacy? Paul Armour.
Several years ago, I was a member of a workshop, a set of computer people, law enforcement people who were gathered together and asked to pretend that we were consultants to the Russian secret police and given the task of designing for them a system which would keep track of all the Soviet citizens plus all the foreigners who happened to be within the boundaries of the USSR. After considerable study, the workshop concluded that the best system to build for the KGB, the secret police, was an electronic funds transfer system. For the reason that electronic fund transfer system not only knows what you're buying, but where you are in real time at the time you're making your financial transaction.
Some privacy experts acknowledge these threats and consider them beyond existing computer capacity.
When you or I go to our banking terminal, we're one of perhaps several thousand people that use that terminal to withdraw funds using our bank card in a day. And if you multiply that by the other thousands of people that do that, and take a look at the information flow to the processing centers, you'll find that in order to get the kind of information that people fear will be collected, and then to sort it and make some meaning out of it, as opposed to just processing it serially as it comes in, you have to increase the computer capacity by a factor of perhaps 1,000.
The banking industry has developed its enormous computer capacity to handle countless online data communications every day. At the sending end, the main bank computer is called a central processing unit, or CPU. It transmits data in on-off type electronic pulses called bits. The bits then pass through a device called a modem. Modems allow CPUs and automatic tellers to communicate by translating the discrete bits into continuous electronic messages. Receptor modems translate the message back into discrete bits of data. The bits then feed into a receiving terminal, which can be located at another branch office, an automatic teller machine, or even another financial institution. How does AmeriFirst protect its data communication?
We've taken the necessary steps to secure that area. We did that through data encryption. Data encryption is a means and method of scrambling data that is transmitted over phone lines to make it impossible for anybody to interpret that information as it's being passed back and forth.
Miami-based Raquel Milgo Electronics manufactures encryption systems like the one AmeriFirst installed. While very few institutions presently use encryption systems, it seems inevitable that their privacy and security benefits will make this a high-growth industry. Product manager Nick Sclair.
Assume that this is a branch at AmeriFirst. We'll say that we're not with multiple branches. It's a single branch talking to a computer located downtown. This would be a remote site branch on the right-hand side, and we're originating a transaction and then sending that across telephone wires, and now that would be monitored on the device located in the center there.
This is what a wiretapper monitoring the line would see. Utilizing a single passkey that contains a secret code, the system transforms an unscrambled message into a scrambled mess that is almost impossible to decode. The code uses a mathematical standard called DES, Mark Code.
The data encryption standard is an algorithm that was developed by a group of scientists. The algorithm itself is taking a series of numbers, executing several block transformations, product transformations on it, such that when they come out, they're all scrambled around. The algorithm is a published algorithm. Anybody can do this. What makes it secret is the little key. There's a secret key, a secret group of numbers, which is actually a 56-bit binary number. When this is fed into two algorithms, they both operate on the input data equally, such that the data coming out is the same. So you can actually encrypt and decrypt data.
Who are Raquel Milgo's first customers?
Essentially, it's been the financial industry. And I think what a lot of people are waiting for, not for installing these, is the fact that they believe they want to see disaster. They want to see something come close to home. And I've heard that likened to perhaps what the industry is waiting for is a 3 Mile Island disaster of data processing.
Not one of the world's 8 largest commercial banks encrypts all of its data communications. 4 of the 8 encrypt at strategic places. The other 4 don't encrypt at all. Wiretaps can happen at 3 points in data communication systems. In an inside job, an institution's main computer can be tapped directly. Or outside, a mini-computer can be attached directly to phone lines. Finally, invaders can break computer access codes and then dial directly into the system itself by public telephone.
Technology's changing. A few years ago, there were perhaps 50,000 hobby computers in the country. We're now over several million hobby computers, and that business is booming. It turns out that a hobby computer is a fine tool to tap a data line with.
Hello, this is the Syscruncher. Remember me? I brought your system down last week. Brian Catlin, alias Syscruncher.
Before it was like a game, and it was like, sure, they should know more about programming than we should. so they should be able to figure it out real quick and get the system back up.
Dr. Helmut Epp is Computer Science Department Chairman, and Father John Richardson is President of Chicago's DePaul University. Before today, Brian Catlin and his father Keith had never met the two DePaul administrators. Sis Cruncher and an accomplice used a home computer and a telephone to break into a college computer system. Nova arranged a meeting between them so that they might discuss Brian's extracurricular activities face to face.
Brian, I'm Father John Richardson. Glad to meet you.
How are you?
Keith, glad to meet you. Glad to meet you. This is Helmut Epp. Hello. Why don't you sit down, please? Thank you. I'm very pleased you came down to DePaul this afternoon. I'm looking forward to this chance to chat with you and exchange views on the question of security of our data processing system here. I hope it's more enjoyable when you come down in person and your experience with it by telephone.
How did you get started doing this sort of stuff?
Into computers?
No, not into computers, but the idea of breaking the access code or getting it and controlling it. I mean, it's a challenge, but how did you get started with it?
Most systems of that type are fairly easy to break in. I've had a lot of experience with it. So our high school rents one from a nearby college, and I've had almost 4 years experience on that, and I've used other systems of that type, and I knew that some of the characteristics of the system, so we just tried it.
Now, the kind of programs that you were looking for were game programs, that sort of thing? I mean, you're looking for protected programs?
Yeah, we were looking for a mixed assembly program, which was on backup on tapes, but I didn't know that then.
Did you know why it wasn't a backup?
No.
Because we don't use it.
Oh.
Actually, you could have called us up and we would have been glad to give it to you.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew that the universities and such got the program set from the author, usually free or at a very low cost. But I didn't think that he would send me a copy of it without some kind of charge on it or anything. And I didn't know how about going into asking DePaul about it. So I just went about this way. It wasn't meant to be destructive or anything.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I was just going through the system looking for stuff.
But you know, there's a kind of quantum jump that you took from trying to break into the system, which you did successfully, from there to using the threat of shutting down the system to obtain something. In this case, a particular piece of software. I mean, at what point did you make that kind of jump? No. I think initially you just broke into the system.
Yes, it wasn't that message that you refer to. It wasn't really. I mean, it wasn't like we'd shut down the system. It was just phrased as such.
Attention. Is there anyone there? I want to talk to you now. If you give me a listing of your mix assembly program, I will leave your system alone.
It just came out phrased very poorly.
In fact, nobody had asked us for this program in years.
Yeah.
The first hint that we got that somebody was tampering with the system is when the games program, which is protected, had been interfered with. I guess you were involved with that, right? You weren't?
No.
So it's not unusual for some of your colleagues to break into other systems.
No, it's fairly common.
Yes. We hear reports of that from other colleges here. It's very seldom is it publicized. We have to be very, very careful of our programs that can contain the payroll, student records. We don't want somebody to enter in to start writing a student record and granting degrees or transcripts, which I guess theoretically would be possible.
I'm wondering about specifically what technique you used to break into the system. I think from the manual, you knew part of our access code, right? The one you wanted, the A00.
Yes.
Number. Then you must have generated all possible passwords.
Yeah.
Now, by hand, that would take some time to do.
Yeah, what we did was we took a microcomputer and we programmed it so it thought it was a terminal and a computer, so it would generate all these codes, and when the system responded, it would check the response. If it said that it wasn't yet cracked, it would go back and try again. If it was, it would stop, it would print out the answer, and then terminate the program. It only took approximately, I believe, half hour for the whole series to be run through, and came back and looked at it and had it.
Half hour to generate all possible.
Well, it was only a 3-letter password.
Yeah, I wondered about that. How did you know it would be only a 3-letter password?
Because on the whole rest of the system, there was only 3 letters, and then there were 3 numbers.
That's right.
Stood to reason that they would only have 3 letters, and then maybe some numbers. So first we just tried out 3 letters, and that was it.
Some of the students have had their own experiences with people breaking into their programs.
Mm-hmm. That happens a lot in high schools and some college institutions. There are students who like to break in and use and erase other students' programs.
You know, that's a kind of electronic vandalism.
Yeah. Really frustrating after you've worked a lot on the program set, and then you come back one day and it's totally gone.
Has that happened to you?
Yes, so I spent about 2 weeks writing my own sort of security program for my account on the system, which makes it invulnerable.
The responsibility for protecting United States government communications belongs to the National Security Agency. NSA routinely makes codes to maintain communication security and breaks codes to conduct its foreign intelligence mission. How do code systems work? Inside New Mexico's Sandia Laboratories, Dr. Gus Simmons.
Cryptographic systems have as their main function hiding information, of concealing the content of a message. In order to do that, the transmitter and the receiver have a piece of information that they know in secret that's unknown to other people outside the system. This piece of information is called key, and the purpose of the key is that you mix it in a complicated fashion with the text whose content you're going to conceal to generate something that's called a cipher. And the function with which you do that, the algorithm or the recipe with which you do the encryption, has to have some special properties. This single key cylinder lock illustrates a single key cryptographic system quite well. The key that's used to lock the lock is also the key that's used to unlock it. In a single key system, clearly, if the key that's in the possession of either the transmitter or receiver becomes known to an outsider, then he can both encrypt and decrypt messages. All the parties to a single key cryptographic system must exchange in advance keys in secret, as we've indicated here with the red flags. If there was a modest commercial system with 10,000 subscribers, there'd be 50 million keys to be exchanged in secret in advance of communication and maintained in secrecy. Each individual would have to maintain protective custody of 9,999 keys. And it's this horrendous problem of generating large numbers of keys, which have to be exchanged in secret in advance of any communication and maintained in secret, that limits the applicability of single key systems to commercial applications.
In France, the television, too, will soon be linked with computer terminals in people's homes. The system will ultimately replace post offices by allowing everyone to use their smart cards as electronic mailbox keys. The cards grant entry into a system called Teletel. By entering names and numerical addresses into Teletel, instantaneous written communication will become possible. When you need an electronic greeting card to send, there will be a variety to choose from. And when up to the second timetables are sought, they will be available at the push of a key. Naturally, subscribers want some kind of electronic substitute for the sealed envelope that protects the privacy of their paper mail. Single-key cryptographic systems are too cumbersome to apply here, but a new two-key system might be the answer. Gus Simmons.
You recall that in the single key lock, there were two functions performed by that key, encryption or locking and decryption or unlocking. Now, in this lock, we've separated the two functions that were combined in a single key before, the unlocking and locking functions. You'll notice that the keys here are quite different from each other, and in fact are sufficiently different that even if you possessed one of the keys, you couldn't deduce the other one. One of these keys operates to lock the lock, that is to say, rotate it in the counterclockwise direction, but cannot rotate it in the other, while the other key locks it, but can't unlock it. And in that sense, it is a good model for two-key cryptographic systems in which we have one key with which we encrypt and another key with which we decrypt, and the keys are sufficiently different that even if you know one of the keys and have a great amount of computing power at your command, that you can't deduce the other key.
MIT mathematician Ron Rivest and colleagues Adi Shamir and Len Edelman found a way to make the two-key model work. The Rivest scheme is based on numbers, more specifically on a set of numbers that can only be divided by themselves and by one. These numbers are called primes. Computers can easily generate an endless supply of very large prime numbers. And computers can quickly multiply two very large primes together. But no computer, not even any bank of computers, can expect to divide a large product into its constituent primes. Therefore, someone using the Rivest scheme can freely publish the product of his two large primes as his public key without fear that his secret key, the primes themselves, will be disclosed.
By splitting the keys in a two-key cryptographic system, we'd also separated the function of authentication and secrecy or privacy. We can use that separation of functions to make it possible to attach digital signatures to digital messages, something that would otherwise be impossible. To illustrate the basic idea there, if I wish to send a message as A to recipient B and to sign it in such a way that he can prove to a third party that the message came from me, I first take the message and encrypt it using my secret key, produce a cipher that only I could have generated. It's the important thing about the two-key system, that we now have a cipher that could have only been generated by me, therefore it's associated with an action that I've taken. I then take that cipher and super encrypt it using the intended recipient, B's, public key, something that could have been done by anyone. However, the message, the cipher that's being encrypted, could have only been generated by me. Now, the resulting super cipher can only be read by B. He has the secret half of the B key. So only B can gain access to this. But when he opens it and finds inside a cipher that could have only been generated by me, that can be verified by anyone by showing that my public key is the one that decrypts the cipher. It can be proven that the message had to originate with me. So in that sense, there's now a signature attached to a digital message.
The Rivest team recently designed a silicon chip that will implement their prime number scheme. But a more general issue has arisen between the academic community and NSA. That issue is whether free cryptographic research interferes with the government's ability to protect the national security. NSA is concerned about the international spread of U.S. code research.
The National Security Agency has two missions. One is to protect the security of certain U.S. communications, and the other is to gather foreign intelligence.
In a rare interview for television, NSA legal counsel Daniel Schwartz.
NSA is concerned that the publication of certain research in the field of cryptology may have an adverse impact on the national security by either improving the position of certain potential adversaries with regard to our secure telecommunication system, or by limiting the ability of the United States to gather foreign intelligence. In light of these concerns, NSA has worked with a study group formed by the American Council on Education to address the possibility that research in the field of cryptology may have an adverse impact on the national security. That study group has recommended, with one dissent, that NSA initiate a pre-publication review procedure. NSA has determined to initiate such a procedure and to work with researchers on a cooperative and voluntary basis to identify and hopefully discourage the publication of information that may have an adverse impact on the national security.
I think we're in a period of extremely rapid change. We'll probably have more change in the next 15 years than occurred in the Industrial Revolution in a period of 150 years. And to manage our transition through that change and keep our liberties will mean that we're all going to have to work at it.
1984 is more a state of mind than a particular set of government capabilities and regulations. It's a state of mind in which the individual is so concerned about his actions, where his actions are going to be known to government and to a large set of people, that he is inhibited, he is concerned, he essentially is not willing to stick his neck out. And I think that in a society of that sort, we'll soon lose initiative, innovation, and that really democracy cannot flourish in a society in which everyone is conforming out of fear.
In the first half of this century, Mr. Justice Brandeis called privacy the right most valued by civilized men. In the last half of this century, we must also make it the right that is most protected. Thank you and good afternoon.
The material on this video cassette is protected by copyright. It is for private use only, and any other use, including copying, reproducing, or performance in public, in whole or in part, is prohibited by law.